Rachelle Chase is joining us. Thank you so much for being our guest this week. Tell us a little bit about how you have a unique story in that your adult life has been one of not being afraid to take risks in your professional sphere.
Oh, well, thank you. First of all, thanks for having me on. Where does one begin with that story, right? I think it really begins with, of course, family. My dad had raised me to believe that I could be whatever I wanted as long as I was willing to work hard enough. And my mom, who liked moving around all the time to different places. I think I'd been to about 14 different schools or houses by the time I graduated from high school. I kind of learned that, change is your friend. There's a lot of good things that come out of change. It can be challenging at times, but I think the two of them that really led me to be who I am today and to do all the different things I've experienced.
When you think about that foundation of growing up, as you describe, being open, not that as a child we can control it, but because you had so many of those transitions, now that you've embraced that as an adult, how do we use change for good? How can it be something, that is a helper, not a hindrance?
Yeah. I think, this perception of failure can be a great freeing part of change, meaning when I look back on one of the most traumatic experiences of my professional life, which was when I had started a business. I had quit my job. I had started this software business, leveraged my house, took all the funds out on it, and it failed, right? And so I ended up selling my house, and then I was like, what do I do? I had also marriage had a marriage situation also that had failed around that same time, and it was this feeling of I am at this place I've never been before, where what do I do now? And so that perceived failure launched a consulting business where I was, doing something I hadn't really thought of doing, where I was making twice the amount of money I was making before as an employee. I was a developer before I started my own business. And again, that was a key experience for me because it taught me that no matter how bad you think things are, no matter what happens that you perceive as really bad and challenging at that moment, it launched something better. There's always something good that comes out of that. And not only that, I realized that I bounced back after that into something better. So it then freed me to take more risks and to not be afraid to risk things for the things that I believed in from a career standpoint.
I'm so glad you shared that. That is such good advice. When we find a silver lining in a tough situation, as you described, sometimes it's the impetus to get us to move out of our comfort zone that we may not have otherwise left unless we were forced to.
Hmm. Yeah.
How do you advise people when they say, I just don't want to go through the discomfort? I'm afraid of taking the risk. How do you advise people to be open to pivoting?
Yeah, I think first of all, I have pivoted a lot, and I think the thing that keeps me pivoting is that in my gut, I'm always like, how does this feel, this opportunity? I'm always afraid when I'm doing something because it's always something that's going to lead to new experiences, new skills on my resume, new something. So there's always that fear. But there's that feeling of, do I really want to do this? Does this feel like the right thing that I want to do at this time? And knowing that nothing is something that you can't change. If I make this decision and I go for this job or this opportunity and it's not the right one, I'm not locked into that. It's like you can still quit that. You can still pivot back to what you were doing. You can still do something else, right? So it's that feeling of nothing is permanent, that I can always change my mind. The second thing is, again, that feeling like risk, that okay, I nothing, even if the worst case, imagining what the worst case scenario is, it's like, okay, can I live with that? Can I live with that situation if that worst thing that were to happen? And then I think also it's just again the bottom the bottom thing that I always think of is the worst case scenario is if this fails, in all of the 50 states, can I find another job doing something? And so I always feel like, yeah, I think I can find another job. So I think these are some of the things that I think in my mind when I'm trying to, in a sense, decide if this is something I should pursue or not.
I love that. I love your train of thought,
Mm,
especially when you talk about when you're pivoting to something new or a new challenge. How do you feel? What is
mm.
that experience? Drill down a little bit about that. How do you sort of test yourself to say, is this something I'm truly enjoying? Am I passionate about it? Or am I just sticking with this job because I'm afraid of the unknown?
Yeah, well, in terms of how the feeling around that is, I think that one's very clear. When I'm sticking with a job that it's more for because I'm afraid of the unknown, it's usually a job that I do not like doing. It's usually a job that, there's some payoff. And I've had to do those, like as I've been pursuing my writing career, there have been compromises, meaning I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this higher paying job. First, I'm going to be a contractor, not an employee. So I have some freedom. I have, freedom over the length of time I'm going to devote to a specific job. But it's like, I know I don't really, but this is not feeding my soul, this job, but the money is good. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to work for 8 months. And then I have the freedom then to now take some time off to work on that thing, the writing, the goal that I have for that and pursue that. So there was a time in my life where I was doing a lot of that back and forth. I was writing, working the job that did not necessarily feed my soul, and I gave it my all. I was not just going there and just showing up and, not doing a good job. I gave it my all. But the reward was I got to take the time off then to do what I wanted to do with hopes that I could transition to that full time. So that was, again, having this plan in place. So there may be times that I'm going to have to do something that is not the most exciting job. It's not what I want to do. But the practical sense is for right now, for me, I have to do that. The other thing, when I am taking risks, how do I know which is the right thing? Not only is it how does it feel, but I'm always looking for opportunities that put more skills on my resume, put more experiences on my resume. So that again, it's that feeling of, okay, if things go wrong, if I quit, this is not something I like, if I get laid off, whatever happens, I've got things I can do that I will always feel like I will be able to get a job doing something.
That is so great and so timely because there are so many people post COVID who've reassessed their priorities and that work life balance that's so critical. And I love, as you described it, having multiple careers or opportunities can be seen as a resume builder, not a deficit in the modern working world that we all engage with. So your advice is so important. You mentioned writing. I know you've published probably more than one publication. How can we find your material or track you down if people want to follow up with you online?
Writing, I have my woefully out of date, they need to be updated websites, but you can find me at RachelleChase.com, which has kind of an overview of my writings, both the journalism that I've done, the 2 books on Buxton, Iowa that I've done, and I've got some new projects that are underway that I'm working on as well, that hopefully I'll be able to share that news in the next upcoming weeks. So that's the best place to find out what I'm doing is on the website, RachelleChase.com. I also have a nonprofit called unitingthroughhistory.org, which you can find out some of the things I'm doing there as well.
Well, congratulations on your new endeavors and your past ones, and we appreciate your time and your insight today.
All right. Thank you so much, Tara, for having me. I appreciate it.